Hello everybody, I hope you're all fit and well. It's been a while since I did one of these and I thought I'd do a subject which is close to my heart actually, and that's musicians and artists groups from Yorkshire, which is where I was born. For those people that don't know, Yorkshire is the biggest county in the United Kingdom or England for its writers, painters, a multitude of very, very famous people in that genre. From God's country, people absolutely amazing musicians. I'm not going to name all or show you all. I've got a mixture of my favourites, and then at the end of the video I'll tell you a few others that's not included in my list here. Some of them you might know, some of them possibly not, And I'm starting with an artist that perhaps you don't know. And this chap comes from a place called Hull. Wrong, York. It's from York in Yorkshire. This chap is called, I'll show you the record first, Benjamin Francis Letwich. There's a bit of sun here. He's made 3 albums. This particular one, After the Rain, is the second one. This first one I've just got on CD, which is a great title called Last Smoke Before the Storm, which is, I've just got the CD. And then his latest one is this fantastic album called Gratitude. Benjamin started in 2012, and I suppose he was lumped with the music genre that was this new folk genre of music. But he's much more than that. He started off on the Communion label, which was a label started by Marcus Mumford from Mumford and Sons. Perhaps some of you know that particular name. And they set up this small Communion record label, and basically it was designed to show off new talent. Benjamin was down in London at the time, and Communion evenings, as they used to call them, used to bring in all these amazing musicians, and a lot of quite famous people started off on that label, Communion, not least Mumford and Sons, of course, Ben Howard, Michael Kiwanuka, Benjamin, Laura Marlin, and a host of other people. They used to have these live folk nights, and if a particular artist or musician went down well, they used to go next door into this very, very small studio and they recorded them, and that's how Benjamin started off. His first album was very successful. He got a place at the Glastonbury Folk Festival when he first started, and this album went down very, very well. It's very melodic, it's very stripped back, it's very acoustic, it's sort of in the vein of sort of Nick Drake, John Martin, that sort of influence on his music. My particular favourite is his latest one. This is just a super album. I've shown this before, I think, but I cannot recommend this album enough. He's a great, talented Yorkshireman. Not quite sure how successful this album was, but it's one of my favourites from. I only picked it up last year. It came out at the end of 2019, so I picked it up last year. This is a great album. The title track is, well, it's my favourite from the album. Wonderful album. And if you're lucky enough, like I am, to get the thing on clear vinyl, which this is, it's just, the whole package is great, as all his 3 albums are. But that's just an extra little thing that I like. I love clear vinyl. So Benjamin Francis Letwich is my first Yorkshireman and great musician. The next one, I think you all know this particular band. They are still going. However, it's just one chap that makes up the band, and he's from Sheffield. And that man is a guy called Martin Fry, and his band are called ABC, the Lexicon of Love. I think everybody knows this album. It's such a classic album from the 80s. This came out in 1982, although the first single was the year before. Is there a bad track on this album? No, there isn't. I think most people know this album. I think a lot of people bought it as well. The album has now become a classic, and it's such a beautifully produced album from another Yorkshireman, which is, if you want to call Middlesbrough Yorkshire. Some people do. I don't personally. I think it's not in Yorkshire at all. But that's this chap called. Oh dear, he's gone. He's gone. It'll come back to me in a minute. Trevor Horn is the chap. I got there. It was produced by Trevor Horn, but it's Anne Dudley and her orchestrations that really make up the album. I think everybody knows most of the tracks: Poison Arrow, Tears Are Not Enough, The Look of Love, of course, It's a beautifully produced album, and it flows like a little story, and the original format of the album, or the original people in the album, great musicians, all of them: David Palmer, Stephen Singleton and Mark White, and of course Martin Fry. Great voice, absolutely fantastic voice. But I thought David Palmer was a particular favourite of mine. Great drummer. He left a few years later after this album, and he joined The with Matt Johnson, of course. He was a drummer for a number of years with that setup. Great drummer. But this is just a fantastic album, They had a run of albums, and they've never really been able to follow this up, I don't think, until this next one I'm going to show you. So it was a hard act to follow. The next one that they produced was Beauty Stab, and I quite like that one, but it went down like a lead balloon. It wasn't very successful at all. There was a couple of albums that they made later on in the 80s into the 90s. Smokey Sings was from one of those albums. Huge success as a single. Album, not so much. So, the band more or less broke up. And then they were doing the rounds, I think it might have been 6 or 7 years ago, where whoever thought of the idea, it was quite a novel idea. They were doing these 80s package tours. So they became part of that set up. So it was groups like Spandau Ballet, Ultravox, Soft Cell. Soft Cell's another Yorkshire band I'll mention in a minute. So they set up, and Human League as well as another one. They set up these packages, and they became like a sort of touring sort of tour package, really. However, what they decided to do, and they put on a massive show for the 30-year anniversary of this album. And what Martin Fry decided to do was to make a second part. So this is the Lexicon of Love Part 2. This is a fabulous, fabulous album. This came out in 2016, this one. So they did the 30-year anniversary of it. Royal Albert Hall, full orchestra and all the rest of it. That was so successful that Martin decided to, okay, I'll give it another go. And this got into the charts again after, God, I don't think they've been in the charts for a good 20 years. This is a superb album. As you can see, the package is very similar to the original. And sometimes you can't even tell them apart. But it's just Martin from they brought back in 10 fabulous songs on it, actually. I'm just looking through who produced this. It could have been Trevor Horn again. Let me just have a quick look. Bear with me. Anne Dudley does the orchestrations again, which really enhanced the material. And was it Trevor Horn that did this one? No, it was another chap. But very, very well produced. Anne Dudley, I think, is the star of the show on here. The Flames of Viva Love was the single from this that they released. I think by that time, 2016, I don't think singles were really singles; they were downloads, weren't they? So Viva Love and The Ship of the Seasick Sailor. That was another song that they released. Viva Love was the big one. This is a great, great album. So these two then are fantastic albums that were made and produced by a great Yorkshireman, Martin Fry. Great, great singer. Does not get the credit that he deserves, I don't think. Fantastic singer. Fantastic singer. If they're going to make another one, who knows? It's been 5 years since this one. Obviously, this is from 1982. Are they going to make another one? Your guess is as good as mine. But these two albums are really, really good. Fun albums, dancing albums. Great melodies, great songwriting, great lyrics. Beautifully orchestrated, as I mentioned before, by Anne Dudley. Great, fantastic stuff. So, Martin Fry then. The next one, sadly, no longer with us. This chap was born literally a mile down the road from where I was born. I was born in a place called Dewsbury. This chap was born in a place called Batley. He spent his childhood there and then moved all over the world. His dad was a businessman that worked for a huge company, so he went all over the world, you know. The chap I'm talking about is the brilliant, well, I'll show you this one first because you can see his name better. The brilliant Robert Palmer. I'll tell you about this album in a minute. Robert was a fabulous singer. Started his career basically his main group before he went solo was this group called Vinegar Joe. And Vinegar Joe were a sort of funky rock band as well with Elkie Brooks. So there was very unusual, a female and male front singer. But it really, really did work. Unfortunately, they were popular within the music fraternity. They got a lot of TV airplay, certainly on this old Grey Whistle Test music show that was in the 70s. So effectively, Vinegar Joe only made 3 albums, and great albums they are as well. They did the rounds, they did all the big festivals, the clubs, universities, all that sort of thing, you know. But unfortunately, people love to go and see them live, but not enough people were buying their albums at the time, you know. So they decided to fold, and both Robert and Elcree went on solo career paths, you know. Robert, when he left Vinegar Joe, went out to America on the East Coast and met up with this fantastic band called Little Feat with Lowell George, great slide guitar player, again no longer with us. So Little Feat, over his first 2 or 3 albums, they effectively became his backing band. And what a great backing band they were. This is his first album. This is 1974. This is Sneaking Sally Through the Alley, which was a great, great single. Got into, I think it got into the top 30, actually. The album better than the single. People knew what a great singer he was, you know. He had a great run, on Island Records. You know, this was produced by a lot of great people, not least Rhett Davis, who was associated with Roxy Music. He was their producer for quite a number of years. You know, so he had some good people on here, not least Little Feat backing him up, you know. Sailing Shoes, great song. Hey Julia, Sneaking Sally Through the Alley, the title track I've already mentioned. Get Outside, Blackmail, You Turn the Album Over. How Much Fun, that's probably the best track on the album for me. From a Whisper to a Scream, and Through It All There's You. The thing about Robert, he wrote all his own material. There's a couple of covers that he did over the years, but not that many in his earlier career. Great album. This as a debut album. This is a great album. But his first major one was this one. And this is Clues. This is a completely different beast to Sneaking Sally Through the Alley, which is more funk based, soul as people used to call it in those days. This is more electronic. This has got who we got on here. We've got I think Gary Newman's on one of the tracks. Yes, he is. Gary Newman's on one of the tracks here. You've got Sly and Robbie on here, so there's a bit of reggae influences with the electronic stuff as well. And then you've got now let me look. I'm sure there's, yes, there is. You've got Tina Weymouth on here as well. Very unusual, although it's not in a way, because this was recorded in the Caribbean, where Talking Heads were at the time. This is from 1981. This was recorded. The big one from here was 2, actually. Looking for Clues and Johnny and Mary. Johnny and Mary probably was the big one. That was certainly his biggest hit up to that time. His previous albums, he'd done quite a few. I think this is his 6th. But they were all sort of in the same mold. So you had, you know, a lot of soul and funk and and rhythm and blues and things going on. And this was his first foray into electronic music. He did particularly well. Then came his big period in the mid-80s with Addicted to Love, of course. Who can forget that video, you know? Fantastic video. And yeah, he had a great run. Towards the end of his career, he was starting to do standards. So he did a couple of albums with standard songs. So he was going into the Sam Cooke, Frank Sinatra, Dean Martin, Otis Redding, those sort of songs. And he had a great voice. He had the voice to pull them off, you know. But unfortunately, he passed away. He was only 54 when he died, and he had a heart attack he was in London at the time doing a show or rehearsing for a show. Went back to the hotel and had a huge heart attack. Very, very sad. Big smoker, 60 a day apparently he was on. So perhaps that had a reason to put him in that direction of not having a particularly strong heart, because he'd not had any problems in that area before. He just had this massive heart attack and unfortunately passed away. So there we are. Very, very sad loss, I thought. Of course, it wasn't just his solo stuff. And Vinegar Joe, he did the Power Station. He worked with Duran Duran, of course. He worked with Chic. So he was revered by a lot of musicians. Great voice. Big mate of John Martin as well, and associated with Talking Heads, as we know. I've already said. Tina Weymouth's on here. Very, very sad loss. Very sad loss. So that's Robert Palmer then, the lad from Batley. Right, the next chap from Sheffield. I really, really love this chap. He's one of these people that I'd love to sit down, have a pint, and put the world to rights with this guy. He's a straight talking, no nonsense Yorkshireman, this lad. And he's such a brilliant musician. He's such a great songwriter. His songs appeal to any age group, young, middle-aged, your mum and dad, your granny. They will all love his stuff. Okay, I'll show you the record first. And I'm talking about the absolutely brilliant Richard Hawley. This is an EP that he did a couple of years ago to promote one of the albums that I'm going to show you in a minute. This is the False Lights from the Land. Beautiful, beautiful thing. Such a brilliant singer. He is the Sheffield answer to Elvis. He really, really is. Let me just put this to one side because I want to show you two albums that, if you want to investigate Richard Hawley, I would strongly advise you these two albums are the ones to go for. Just to give you a little bit of background about Richard Hawley, he started relatively late. He was in a band called Long Pigs. They were a pretty rocky band. They split up, and Richard auditioned as a guitar player for Morrissey, of all people. And he went in, and apparently he played one of Elvis's songs, and Morrissey did not like that, so he didn't get the job. And he then hooked up with his mate from Pulp, and he did a couple of session guitar work with Pulp. Jarvis is a huge friend of his, and he was the one that pushed Richard to go on a solo career. He didn't have the confidence initially to do it, but it was Jarvis Cocker, bless his cotton socks, another brilliant Yorkshireman, that pushed him to start a career on his own, which thankfully he did. He's made so many albums, you know, but I'm going to pick out two that I really do think that you ought to investigate. The first one is the magnificent Cole's Corner. This is just a superb album. Everybody knows this, that you know, this album, because it was nominated for a Mercury Award, didn't win it, and the Arctic Monkeys, another Yorkshire band from Leeds, they won it, and the singer got up onto the stage to collect, or the band got up onto the stage to collect the Mercury Award, you know, and the singer said, "Call the cops, you know, Richard Hall is being robbed." And that was the album that didn't make the Mercury. It should have won it, really, and they all said it should have won it. This is just a beautiful, beautiful album. Most of his albums, by the way, Cole's Corner is it was a building in Sheffield that lovers used to go and meet up, and that was the meeting place that they used to go. It was an old cinema, theatre. It doesn't exist anymore. But most of his albums are named after places in Sheffield, you know, not least this one. These 11 tracks just flow into one another. They are absolutely gorgeous. I think the one that people tend to associate with this album is The Ocean, and quite right too. It's a beautiful song, but these songs are set in such a way and organized in such a way that they, you know, it's got this 50s, 60s feel to them, this Sinatra, Elvis feel to them, but with a modern touch as well. Some great orchestrations in here, but it's the words, and it's Richard singing. He's got such a beautiful voice, and his guitar playing. He's got a great band as well. He's kept with the same musicians on every single album. The core musicians are all the same. This is such a beautiful album. You could, as I said before, this album you could play to your kids, you could play to your mum, your dad, your granny, your uncle, and they would all love it. It's just an absolutely beautiful album. The last track, which is called Last Orders, it's an instrumental, and it's so beautiful, you know. Just Like the Rain, Hotel Room, Darling, Wait for Me, The Ocean, I've already mentioned that, Born Under a Bad Sign, Sleep Alone, Tonight, Wading Through the Waters of My Time, Who's Gonna Shoe Your Little Pretty Feet, wonderful, and then Last Orders again. But it's the core musicians that make up the band that really bring out the quality of the songs. There's some absolutely beautiful stuff on here. You know, it's just fabulous. You know, and it's you know, it's very emotional music. When you look at some of his videos, he tends to make videos very, I'm not going to beat about the bush, they're very romantic songs, and sad songs as well. He will take a subject matter, and you don't need to go and read a book, get a book out of the library to work out what he's going on about. His vocals are straight from the heart to you, and that's the strength of Richard Hawley. This album is just absolutely fantastic. It really is. He's not made a bad album, I have to say. But this one should have won the Mercury. And I would strongly suggest you check this out. Not a bad track. Not a bad track. The one that did win the Mercury is this one. And hopefully you can see that. This is called True Love's Gutter. Again, it's a place in Sheffield, basically a pub where people met, and of course, you know, sometimes they hit it off, sometimes people didn't, you know. The first song on this album, if it doesn't get goosebumps coming up on your arms, back of your neck, the hairs at the back of your neck, As the Dawn Breaks, it is just fabulous, fabulous. This won the Mercury. Thank God it won it in 2009. This album came out. On the back of this album, the BBC invited Richard along with the BBC Symphony Orchestra, I might add, to do a few shows, and the compere was Jarvis Cocker, and they did a couple of live shows on the radio, and it is just truly and utterly out of this world, out of this world. This album is it's unusual in the fact that it's got two quite long pieces on here, which is unusual for Richard. The two long pieces are Remorse Code and Soldier On. They're over 10 minutes each, but they just build and build and build and build to crescendo after crescendo. There's some beautiful orchestrations on here. The band, they experiment with certainly very unusual instrumentation. It's just a fabulous album, you know, and quite right, it won the Mercury Award. It's very small text, you can't really read it. It's I'd love to get this on. I've never seen it on vinyl, troops. Never seen this on vinyl at all. But there's not a weak track on here. The track, As the Dawn Breaks, I've already mentioned it. Open Your Door, Ashes on the Fire, Remorse Code. That's a wonderful, wonderful song. It's just under 10 minutes, that one. Don't Get Hung Up on Your Soul, such a sad song. Soldier On, that was dead. Wonderful. For Your Lover, Give Some Time, and Don't You Cry. It's just, those 8 songs just flow into one another, and they're just beautiful. I cannot recommend this enough. It's a great, great album. It's my favourite. It's not everybody's favourite. I think everybody's favourite is the previous one, Cole's Corner. I've already shown you. And if I have to be, you know, sort of pedantic, Cole's Corner would be the one album that I would suggest if you, you know, want to go out and investigate this fantastic Yorkshireman, that would be the one. So I think that's the one that you know would be a great introduction, but that's my favourite. Fantastic musician. Proud to be a Yorkshireman. I'd love to, like I say, I've not seen him live. A few of my friends have, and he certainly does not disappoint. He puts on a fantastic show. One of the few guys I'd love to see live. Richard Hawley then, the Magic Man from Sheffield. Okay, I've just got two more, and perhaps this one, the next one I'm going to show you, is probably, yeah, he's one of the finest guitar players on the planet. There's a statement for you. This chap was born in Doncaster, not too far away from where I was born. This man has been in so many different formats, played with so many people. He is a player that can literally pick up his instrument and play anything. Jazz, blues, world, indie, rock, folk, country, anything you want, anything. He's such a marvellous player. He's played with everybody from Miles Davis, Chick Corea, Santana, you know. So, you know, when I say Santana, you probably guess who I'm referring to. And I am referring to the wonderful, magical John McLaughlin. Before I show you two albums that I really think you should get. What's John McLaughlin done? Well, he started his career with Miles Davis. He's on Bitches Brew, who you probably all know. 69 into 1970. And obviously, Miles was going through his jazz rock phase, fusion phase. Miles was the one that says to John, you need to start your own band, mate. And you need to take this jazz fusion thing in another way. And what did he do? Well, okay, Miles, I'll do that. Maravisha Orchestra. Did they make some albums or what? It's just incredible. Incredible albums they made. What a run. What a run they had of albums. Obviously, you know, within the jazz fusion genre, other elements were coming out in his playing and people were hearing all this. And one of the elements that was coming out of his playing was the Indian influence in his playing. So on a break, on a Maravishi Orchestra tour, he went to India, met up with Shankar, who's an incredible Indian violinist, and he also met up with Zakir Hussain, who's probably, well, he's not probably, he is the greatest tabla player on the planet. And they came up with this idea, well, why don't we form a little band? John said, well, hang on a minute, I need to make another album with Maravishi. So he did, he made Birds of Prey, then went back to India, got the three of them in. So he got in Shankar, Zakir Hussain, and then T.H. Vanikian, who's a Gatan player, basically a clay pot. And they made 3 albums in the 70s, from 1976, 77, and 78. Was it 8, the last one? Yeah, early 78. They didn't sell anything. The world were not waiting. Oh, sorry, the world was not ready for Shankar. This is their second album. This is just an extraordinary album. Okay, you may argue it's a bit Marmite, you're either going to like it or not, but you cannot deny the playing on this album is just absolutely outrageous. There is one track that I would, if you want to investigate, this track is 1 minute 39 seconds long, and it's called Come On Baby Dance With Me. I've never heard a track like that, of that length, with that much in it. You know, there are musicians out there that struggle to make a 40-minute album. Well, that 40 minutes in that album, or whatever album they're trying to make, is in this 1 minute 39. It's got everything but the kitchen sink in it. It's just incredible stuff. John had adapted, and it's gone now, unfortunately, the Shankar guitar. He adapted. He's playing acoustic guitar on the Shankar albums. And it's a traditional 6-string guitar. But what he wanted to do was to start the ragas, which is like an introduction to a piece, to start the other musicians off. And basically the 6 strings are going across, and then you've got another 6 strings going this way. And he uses that to start the piece off, and then off he goes. This is just a tremendous album. They made 3 in the 70s, and then John went on to play with loads of people, and I'm going to show you an album in a minute. Other people he played with, and then there was a good, oh my life, I'm trying to think now, got to be 25 years. And then suddenly Shankar came back together. They didn't announce anything, they just announced these shows in London. And luckily enough, I was there at the time, so it would have been 93. So yeah, 20 odd years. At the Royal Festival Hall, I know, mind-blowing, absolutely mind-blowing. But they made these 3 albums, and they didn't sell anything. But now, what John does, he plays with all sorts of different setups, and then again, sometimes suddenly he'll go, oh, okay, I'll go make another Shankar album. But what he's done this on the newer Shankar albums, he's brought in other people. You know, Zakir is still there. Shankar just disappears. You know, it's very difficult for John, for whatever reason, to get hold of Shankar. So there's no violin on the later Shankar albums, or the newer Shankar. Not that they're bad; they're all great. So Shankar then. However, John's, it probably is, apart from the classic Mahavishnu Orchestra, and of course the 2 albums he made with Carlos Santana, I think this is probably his most popular album. This is Friday Night in San Francisco, with Aldo Mola, John, and Paco de Lucia. Paco, unfortunately, is no longer with us. This is a live album. This is the first album together, and it's a live one. And this is probably one of the greatest live albums, along with, let's have a think, The Who live at Leeds. It's that good. It's that you can feel the energy of the musicians draining off onto the audience, and you can hear the banter and the fun that these 3 amazing musicians are having. On paper, you'd have thought, wait, this is not going to work. Aldo Mola, for those people that don't know Aldo Mola, he was in a jazz rock group, similar to, well, not similar, yeah, similar, I suppose, to Mahavishnu Orchestra, but less sort of prog, but more sort of jazzy, you know. Paco de Lucia is just one of Spain's finest Spanish guitarists at the time, you know, traditional Spanish guitar player. And then you got John coming in. Well, John didn't really surprise me that much because he can do anything. These three, when they get together, are literally fireworks going off. This is just a tremendous album. The first track, and what they've done is, this is a this CD's been mixed in such a way that you've got all three of them on different channels. So you've got John, who's on the right channel. Alda Mola is on the middle channel, and then Paco is on the left. And you can hear them playing off one another. It's a great sounding CD. I'd love to get it on an album actually. But it just flies around the room, and they're laughing and joking, and you know, obviously they rehearse the thing. It's just one night this. However, you know, midway through some of the pieces, they stop and they just improvise, and that's what I love, and that's the great attraction of this album. Mediterranean Sundance is just an amazing piece of music. Short Tales of the Black Forest, wonderful. Fevro Rezagado, which is a Egberto Gismonti piece, traditional piece. And then Fantasia Suite, which is an Alda Mola piece of music. And then Guardian Angel finishes off the album, which is a John McLaughlin piece. Brilliant. Brilliant. In many ways, I think John McLaughlin's is probably the finest from a broad spectrum musician to come out of Yorkshire. For me, it's the next one, it's the last one. But what a guitar player. What a guitar player this man is. He's just amazing. Absolutely. And this is just something else. Something else. But he's got such a vast catalogue, you know, with his many different setups that he's been associated with. So you can't really pigeonhole a man, you know. Do you want a bit of jazz? Go on. Go and check out John McLaughlin. If you want a bit of world music, go and check out John Martin. If you want a bit of fusion, John McLaughlin. If you want a bit of rock as well, he's been associated with rock music, John McLaughlin as well. Ambient, folk, he's done a lot, I hate to think if the record company, I'm not quite sure which record company he's with now, Columbia, I think. If someone wanted to put out, I don't think he's done a best of. It's just, it'd be something like a 20 disc box set or something like that, because his vast catalogue is so diverse, you know. You wouldn't give him any justice by trying to just do one CD, you know. It's comfortable. Such a master musician. Wonderful. John McLaughlin from Doncaster. The last one then. Well, you know, I did mention that John's got such a vast catalogue. Well, this guy, the next guy, where do you start with this chap? He, as a solo artist alone, has made over 100 albums. Incredible. He has been associated with so many different groups as well, as producer, record label head as well for a little bit. He's played on lots of people's albums, and it, you know, he had his own group as well. You know, he started in the late 60s, when he finished his art student days. He started with local bands, and then in 71 he certainly was one of the first to make an independent solo record on a very, very small label, and that album was called Northern Dream. So I think most of you know who I'm referring to, and it's the glorious Bill Nelson. As we all might not know, that his big band in the 70s was this one, Bebop Deluxe. Those people who are watching YouTube, I hope you don't take offense to this cover. This is their most popular album. It's not my favorite, but it does contain their hit, which is Ships in the Night. And there they are. And that's Bill there. So this contained, this is the third album, by the way. This contained Ships in the Night, which was a fairly substantial hit. Got them onto this British television program called Top of the Pops, you know. So once you got on there, you'd made it, really. This album's more than that. There's 10 amazing songs on this album. Bill is the main honcho, writes all the material, but nothing taken away from Charlie Tumahai, great bass guitar player, Simon Fox, wonderful drummer, and Andrew Clark, fantastic keyboard player. This was the second lineup of the band, and this is where they really gelled together. There's another track on here that, again, it's just fabulous, called Crying to the Sky. The guitar solo on that is as good as anything Hendrix has done. It is just truly extraordinary stuff. Bill kept the band together until 1978, but Bill is one of these artists and musicians that cannot sit still in one particular genre. So sadly, in 78 he decided to fold the band, formed another band, and that only lasted a year, and then bands forget it. He became a solo artist. So this is Sunburst Finish by Bebop Deluxe. Again, please don't take offense to that. This is their most popular album. This is the third album. Wonderful, wonderful album. Very, very popular. I think it made the top 20 in the UK. They started to have a lot of success in America after this. And it was the next album, Modern Music, my favourite actually, that really did, the Americans took off with that one. And then they made a live album, and then the last album was called Drastic Plastic, and then that was it, unfortunately. Okay, so 1980 then into 81, he decided to go out on his own. Started his own record company called Cocteau Records. Cocteau Records, highly, Jean Cocteau was the main man behind him, calling the label that name. It was a big influence on Bill, not just his music but his art as well. He does a lot of his own covers. Well, a lot of them, every single one. He designs, draws, photographs, whatever the cover might be. But we're talking about the music, you know, and he's such a diverse chap. As I said, he's, to date, he's released over 100 albums. So all I can do to give you, you know, a flavour of what he's done. This is a collection. I'm not a great lover of these things, but this particular one is a good one. This covers his years from 1980 to 1990. He did have a couple of minor hits on his own, and what this album does, it breaks it down because he's done a lot of instrumental stuff. So you've got a vocal album, which is the first album, then an instrumental one, which is the second album. You know, he did have a sizable hit, shall we say, not a big hit, but "Do You Dream in Colour" was a hit for him. And the other ones on the vocal album have been either released as singles or that they are tracks on albums that should have been hits. So "Flaming Desire", that was a single. "Do You Dream in Colour", I've already mentioned that one. "Acceleration" was a single, that should have been a huge hit, that one. "Living in My Limousine", another one, that was a single. "Hope for the Heartbeat" was it wasn't a single, but a great album track that perhaps should have been. And the last track on the side one here is "October Man". Now, what Bill is famous for is using the E-bow on the guitar, which is this energy bow device, which is a battery operated device, and then that sends a signal onto the guitar strings, and it gives it a violin bow type effect. He made that his own. He's the master of that particular effect, and "October Man" brings that out to the fore. The second side is "Private View", great track. "Life in Your Hands", again, was a later single. It should have been a hit. "Contemplation" is a wonderful track. "Glow World", that has got this chap called Nick Khan from Japan on it. And then another sort of E-bow fest, that's how I describe it. "Another Day, Another Ray of Hope". If I can just give you an example of the amount of albums he released, you know, in the 80s. There they are. You know, so you've got an idea, and this is not all of them, I have to say, the amount of albums that he issued in the 80s. We are talking now, you know, up to, well, this year as well, actually. He was releasing 4 albums a year. He's so prolific. And it can be an instrumental album, or it can be a vocal album, or it can be a combination of both. I'm not going to beat about the bush here. Bill Nelson is probably one of the finest musicians to come out of Yorkshire, along with John McLaughlin, I have to say. John McLaughlin is known as a guitar player. Bill is just a multi-instrumentalist. He's played on albums with David Sylvian, Gary Newman, the Skids. He's produced the Skids. He's produced what's the other band? Man Dancing. He had his own record company, like I said, Cottu Records. Such a fantastic musician, you know, so prolific. In some ways, you really don't know what you're going to get from one album to the next, which I love, you know. Such a nice fella. And he's certainly my favourite artist to come out of Yorkshire. So diverse, like as I said, he's done film soundtracks, he's done TV work. He's very prolific, very prolific. He can go in one direction. It can be a rock, all-out rock album, like bebop, or some of his solo stuff, or it can be a beautiful ambient, chilled album. And then it can go back to acoustic folk. It can go to an electronic album, an orchestrated album. Is just so prolific, and he's one of these artists now. Anyway, he's totally independent. He records at home, and then he finishes off in one of the studios. And once he finishes the pieces, takes them into the studio, finishes them off, and then gets a couple of his mates to well, not produce, because he produces it himself. Market, he gets a couple of guys to market the thing and release it. That's how he does things. Cuts out all the middlemen, and that's the way to do it, in my opinion. He's got his core base of people, so he knows who his core audience are, and he releases albums that he thinks are going to be attractive to his core base. And he's still doing that now, and he's a fantastic musician. There he is. There. Okay. The wonderful William Nelson from Wakefield, just down the road from me as well. So there we are. I've just gone over the hour, guys. That's my favourite Yorkshire musicians. There are loads more. Joe Cocker, the whole of the Human League, Mark Allman, great singer. Not a great lover of him, but I think he's got a great voice. Ed Sheeran was born in Halifax, believe it or not. Not a great lover of that chap neither, but he's a huge star, isn't he? Really. I think that's the ones that spring to mind. There are more. You've got the bass player from Franz Ferdinand. He was born in Leeds. There's lots of different connections. I have to mention one though, that's an unsung hero, and that is Mick Ronson. Born in Bradford, okay, and was associated with one of the biggest stars that the UK have ever produced, and that's David Bowie. The run of albums that Mick was associated with, Man Who Sold the World, Hunky Dory, Ziggy Stardust, Aladdin Sane, and Pin-Ups. Need I say any more than that? No, I don't think so. Great guitar player, great producer, great songwriter, great arranger. Fabulous. Unfortunately, I don't have the two. Well, he actually made 3 albums. I don't have them. I've got to get them. They're quite difficult to find, so I will do at some stage. And when I do get them, I will share them. Okay, that's been the Yorkshire Hour then. Okay, hopefully you've enjoyed it. And those people that are taking the time to tune in, please subscribe if you would. Make a comment because it means a lot. It really, really does. Okay, right. Bye-bye. Stay safe, everybody. Have a fantastic weekend, and I'll see you the next time. Cheers.